Welcome to the Week 6 video lecture for Fish and Wildlife Policy, Programs, and Issues. This week, we will explore protected areas and incentive programs for fish and wildlife conservation. Since Teddy Roosevelt established the first bird sanctuary in 1903, protected areas and managed areas have been key elements of wildlife conservation in the U.S. These areas provide sanctuary for species, natural communities, or ecosystems. They are legally designated and managed through legal or other effective means for conservation. Protected areas can be owned and managed by federal, state, and local agencies. Corporations, foundations, and individuals can protect conservation areas as well, sometimes through conservation easements that we'll discuss later. Let's look at some of the different types of protected areas, beginning with parks. Parks are usually established as sanctuaries for wildlife with certain human uses allowed. We are all familiar with national parks like Yellowstone, Grand Canyon, or Great Smoky Mountains National Park. These are owned and managed by the National Park Service. According to its own mission statement, the National Park Service preserves unimpaired the natural and cultural resources and values of the national park system for the enjoyment, education, and inspiration of this and future generations. State parks are administered by state DNRs or specific parks agency. City and county parks are established at the local level, and these are generally managed for active recreation that includes playgrounds and ball fields, as well as passive recreation like open green space and picnic benches and open wooded areas. Wilderness areas protect wildlife from most human uses. These are usually roadless and remote. The National Wilderness Preservation System protects federally managed wilderness areas designated for preservation in their natural condition. Wilderness areas are managed by 4 federal land management agencies: the National Park Service, the U.S. Forest Service, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the Bureau of Land Management. The term wilderness is defined as an area where the earth and community of life are untrammeled by man, where man himself is a visitor who does not remain. There are currently 758 designated wilderness areas encompassing over 100 million acres. Management areas provide protection for specific purposes or certain species while allowing human activities such as hunting and fishing. Most states have some type of wildlife management area designation that is open to the public. Many of these areas were established specifically as game refuges or public hunting areas, but most allow multiple uses. In recent years, many states have allowed timber harvest and oil and gas extraction on these areas to provide revenue. Refuges generally refer to fish and wildlife refuges, which were established primarily to protect waterfowl, migratory birds, large mammals, or threatened and endangered species. The National Fish and Wildlife Refuge System protects 150 million acres of land and water within the 50 states, plus more than 418 million acres of national marine monuments. The vast majority of land in the U.S. is privately owned, and private landowners can play an important role in habitat and species conservation. The Nature Conservancy is a private nonprofit conservation organization that uses land acquisition as a principal tool of its conservation effort. The Conservancy helps to protect approximately 15 million acres in the United States by acquiring land directly, as well as working with agencies, local organizations, and private landowners. In recent years, TNC has developed a conservation buyer program whereby the organization identifies and purchases ecologically valuable properties within priority conservation areas or in zones that buffer and surround core natural areas. The Conservancy then widely and publicly markets the property, seeking a buyer committed to protecting the property's important natural values and willing to ensure the land's long-term conservation by placing a conservation easement on the land. Ted Turner is perhaps the most notable conservation-minded landowner, with more than 2 million acres in 12 states. His ranches have 3 related missions: to protect the environment, to promote the conservation of native species, and to be profitable. Included in his western ranchland prairie ecosystems are a mixture of native and endangered species, including 55,000 bison and 250,000 prairie dogs. Turner has brought back several endangered species on his lands, including the desert bighorn sheep, red-cockaded woodpeckers, and black-footed ferrets. Much of Turner's land is permanently protected through conservation easements. Conservation easements are one of the most powerful, effective tools available for the permanent conservation of private lands. Their use has successfully protected millions of acres of land while keeping it in private hands and generating significant public benefits. A conservation easement is a restriction placed on a piece of property to protect its associated resources. The easement is either voluntarily donated or sold by the landowner and constitutes a legally binding agreement that limits certain uses or prevents development from taking place on the land in perpetuity while the land remains in private hands. Conservation easements protect land for future generations while allowing owners to retain many private property rights and to live on and use their land, at the same time potentially providing them with tax benefits. Conservation easements offer great flexibility. An easement on property containing rare wildlife habitat might prohibit any development, for example, while an easement on a farm might allow continued farming with the addition of agricultural structures. An easement may apply to all or a portion of the property and need not require public access. Numerous federal programs provide technical and financial assistance for conservation on private lands. Some are cost-share programs that pay for some portion of the total cost of implementation. Others provide direct payments to landowners. The Conservation Reserve Program provides annual payments to landowners to set aside cropland to reduce erosion, increase wildlife habitat, and improve water quality. CRP lands are commonly planted in native warm season grasses. The Wetland Reserve Program pays landowners via 10-year contracts or long-term conservation easements to restore wetlands and previously converted to agriculture. The Wildlife Habitat Incentive Program seeks to improve fish and wildlife habitat on privately owned lands through tree plantings, fencing, in-stream structures, and prairie restoration. The Partners for Fish and Wildlife Program provides cost-share and technical assistance for landowners to restore and enhance fish and wildlife habitat on private lands. Practices can include wetland restoration, native prairie restoration, stream restoration, migratory bird habitat, endangered species habitat, and invasive species control. Many other programs exist at the state and federal level to encourage private landowners to enhance fish and wildlife habitat.